Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Lunch and Life with Sharon and
Rob and Joy.
I love how we always have a smile on our face. And for our viewers, we chat a little bit before we hit the recording, and inevitably something makes us laugh, or we have a blooper.
We always have a blooper, actually, to start. But Sharon
Yeah.
actually told me to be quiet before we get going, which makes perfect sense.
Anyway, I think one day we should just record all the bloopers and make a little snippet of that and just share that with everybody, because we're
Get a lot of
human.
hits on it.
Yeah, because we're human just like everyone else. And
Exactly.
last week we were talking about selfish versus selflessness and how we're so hard on ourselves. And it just felt right to continue that conversation and expand into what we want out of life.
I think it's really important too. You were mentioning actually before our little pre-conversation that there was something today written in Daily
Yeah, it's so funny how things pop up when you think, oh, what a coincidence. But nothing ever really is a coincidence, you know?
I know.
And so this one I subscribe to it, and every day they send an article. And this one is being hard on ourselves, and how when we do that, we're sending our bodies a message that we're not good enough. And I'm not going to go through because it's a lot here, so I don't want to read everything. But what I find interesting about that and the message that it sends to our body is mental, emotional, and physical.
Mm-hmm.
So everything that you and I do and teach with our clients, really how it all affects our gut. It affects every aspect, going back to even your, talking always about neuroplasticity.
It's true. And, it's really interesting because we start to believe what we tell ourselves, right? So, and it's funny, I was listening to, or something popped up in Instagram, and it's like something about wealth. And if you say this to yourself and you believe it, you'll attract it. And it's true in the sense of what we're telling ourselves is how we start having those beliefs. And I wanted to talk about this idea of the principles of exponential living. And the exponential is, what are we telling ourselves and how do we live? You can use the word, I like exponential, you can say abundantly, but it's kind of those principles behind it. And I was reading something about it, and then I started to kind of just, my journal came out and my pencil started to flow. And I was putting it for myself and then my clients, and just kind of going and talking about really, I'll look at my notes here, but what are those principles? And some of that starting with mastering your mindset. And then what is that work? Because it really comes down to doing the deep inner work. We have to do the work, and that means listening to ourselves. And that means, what are the strategies that we have to do, and being the leader in our own life to do those strategies, because no one will do it for us. It's kind of that whole issue of self. No one's going to give us our self-worth. We have to be able to do it ourselves, and really get comfortable being uncomfortable.
So well said. And physiologically, that creates so much stress in our bodies. And when that happens, we're releasing all this cortisol, which then throws off our insulin. And so many times people compartmentalize that part of their lives and their bodies, thinking, I'm doing everything right. I'm eating well, I'm taking care of myself, I'm exercising. And yet there, especially as women, as we get older, or we're going through perimenopause and things start to shift. And so much of it is stress related. And that stress just goes back to our mindset. And if we're not able to take that step back and look at, we talk about the wellness wheel, right? And we look at all those aspects, then that energy gets sapped from us physically, physiologically, emotionally. Yeah. And it's a hurricane or tornado enters our body space, and we feel it. And then when we go down that rabbit hole, it's like, how do we stop?
Right. And it really is understanding what those triggers are, right? So where does that source come? So the more you understand you and the trigger, catch yourself in that rabbit hole and realize I'm making that choice not to spiral downward. it's not necessarily being like, oh, everything's rosy and I'm never going to have a bad thought and I'm never going to have a bad day. No, acknowledge it, but stop yourself from spiraling, that you can understand what is that trigger and how do you reset and how do you get yourself out of it. And then how are you going to move forward? Because that's the choice, right?
Mhm.
So do you hold on to, and this is the whole neuroplasticity, right? Do you hold on to the old pattern or do you decide to move forward from it?
Mhm. I love that in terms of the triggers, because we all have them and we react to them. So taking that space to pause, and that's like, the step one. So guys, if you have your pens and paper, just write this down and stop and pause and ask yourself, when am I being triggered? Become aware of that, because then when you become aware of it, then you can explore deeper. Like for me, it's, my dad unfortunately passed away 8 years ago, July 4th. I'm sure I've mentioned it in the past. And July 4th was his favorite holiday because I'm first generation American, and he was an immigrant. So he loved the land of the free, America, God bless America. It was a great way for him and my mom to build a life for their family. So when I was younger, everything that I did was based on their history and their vision and their world. And in high school, I took a geometry regents and I got a 98. And I was so excited. I got a 98. And my dad, of course, now looking back, I see that he really was proud of me, but his response was, "Why did you get one wrong?"
Mm-hmm.
And that immediately left me with, I'm not good enough. And if it's not perfect, why bother trying? And this may resonate with someone who's watching this, right? That trigger, I didn't recognize it for years. And that was just one.
Well, and you bring up a great point, because that one incident, right? And we've
Which
talked
was
about
so
this, and I've talked
benign.
about this. It's so benign. However, it's an imprint that happens, and you're at such a vulnerable stage of childhood that you don't process it, right? So fast forward into your later years of life, whether it's personally or professionally, it's set off so many stages that have happened. I'm not good enough. I'm a failure. I am afraid of failing. There's so many little things, and it may sound so minute at the time, and he meant no harm by it, but it's understanding what that was, and that trigger isn't necessarily now a feeling like I can't do it, or I shouldn't try, or this program's going to fail, or, but it's understanding that, being able to sit with it and say, okay, my father had said this to me years ago, and I know what that is. So now I'm going to let that go. I have to let that
Exactly.
go. So,
Exactly.
and those imprints they're so innocent when you think about it. There's so many of them that are so innocent, but they lay a foundation of elements that we don't realize until later in our lives.
Yeah.
And that's where I think people really need to start understanding it. And frankly, that's where I think COVID has really helped in a way, because we do have this, we still have 24 hours in a day, but we have this time where we can sit. And that's the stuff that is uncomfortable, right? That we have to understand. These are hard conversations to kind of have with ourselves. And frankly, we're all talking to ourselves. So that's a little, do seem a little weird at times. But we have to get comfortable being uncomfortable to say, now I got it. And when you get it, it's really kind of a relief, because you get that trigger. So instead of feeling like suddenly I'm not good enough and I'm not going to get it, and the spiral downward, the rabbit hole, it's like, okay, I understand it, stop and pause and move on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that requires the most time for us to put into moving forward, because we can't just brush over this. It takes daily practice
It takes
to,
daily practice.
yeah, it does. And for some, it could take years. And it's having the compassion for self, right, during that time, to
Mm-hmm.
realize I am enough. It's okay. I'm loved. I'm safe. And let me sit with that trigger and let it like simmer and let it percolate. And let me feel what it is doing to me. Because again, even getting back to the health side of the body, if we don't manage these emotional, physical, emotional, and mental triggers, no matter what we do to take care of ourselves, food, exercise, sleep, and everything else, that stress, the cortisol, the insulin, it's going to mess up our bodies to a point where we're exhausted, and we don't. And most of us, we both see that with our clients.
Absolutely.
And they come to us. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say one other point with the trigger sort of thing. I think something important for everyone to realize is it's a choice to forgive yourself, not the person who did it. And in this situation, let's talk about you for a second. Your father passed away. So you're not going to have this conversation with him, but it's a situation to realize you have to have forgiveness for yourself to say, I'm going to let that go. And it's really a conscious choice at that point. So you have to forgive yourself to make the choice, right? Holding on to it is not going to do you any good, because it is going to cause stress and all of that.
And I want to add, in terms of, yes, he passed away, this past year has been traumatic for all of us. Mm-hmm. We either know someone directly or 1 degree separation of someone who knew someone who passed from COVID. Nope, there's not one person who has not been affected by this. And it's given us time to really sit and pause, right? Like wrapping this all up of, this was so unexpected. This took a year away from all of us. Life is short. Life is fleeting. What do I want from this? What do I want it to feel like? What do I want it to look like? What can I do? So I encourage everybody, take out that pen and paper, write it down, write it in the comments, share it with us, and ask us questions, because this is where the growth and the healing happens. When we do it together, it's, what's that phrase that a wave lifts all boats or something? That phrase? I mesh my metaphors all the time.
I was thinking like it takes a village. So I have no idea.
Takes a village. All right. I like that better. That's simpler. It takes a village.
I have no idea. But what I was going to say apropos to that is, write your goals down. Yeah, things change and you can always change things. But what is that 1, that 5, that 10 year? We know how fast a year goes by. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But think ahead, think of what you want that life to be and live it exponentially, right? Exponential joy. I mean, it's a lifestyle. So start working towards it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I love that conversation. And next week, we're going to continue with it, because this is so important, because we're all going through this. And you and I both, again, with our clients, like we're seeing this so much more, and people they're dying for, not literally now so much, but just like they're hungry, they're thirsty for more of this connection, and for this in-depth wanting to know the why. And it's such a great place to start, is just take out that pen and paper and ask yourself these questions and just write it all down.
Absolutely.
And share in the comments, like, subscribe. If you know anybody who you think would love this, please share this page with them. We just want to be here to help and guide and offer you tips and ideas.
Absolutely. And we're almost at 1,000 subscribers, so help us get there.
Yes, absolutely. Well, as usual, Robin, so much fun unpacking lunch with you. I can't wait till we can do it in person again soon, but it will happen. So
it will happen. Always fun, Sharon.
Always fun. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.